We live in a world that celebrates noise, loud success, loud opinions, loud healing. We are taught to announce our growth, to display our strength, to prove that we are changing. But somewhere along the way, many of us became exhausted, not because growth is hard, but because we tried to perform it. And deep down, you know this truth: the most powerful transformations in your life never needed an audience. There are seasons when your soul does not need applause. It needs honesty. It needs space. It needs silence. Not the silence of isolation, but the silence where you finally stop lying to yourself. The silence where excuses fall away. The silence where you can no longer blame, distract, or delay. The silence where you meet who you truly are, not who you pretend to be, not who people expect you to be, but who you are when no one is watching. Rebuilding yourself is not about becoming someone new. It is about returning to what was always there, before the noise hardened your heart, before disappointment reshaped your intentions, before survival mode became your personality. And that return does not happen in public. It happens quietly. It happens when you choose discipline over drama, sincerity over sympathy, and intention over attention. Silence is not weakness. Silence is courage. It takes strength to stop explaining yourself. It takes faith to keep going when no one sees your effort. It takes humility to rebuild your inner world before trying to fix the outer one. And the truth is, real growth is shy. It doesn't rush to be seen. It takes its time. It sinks deep. It changes your character before it changes your circumstances. As we step into this conversation, this is not about becoming impressive. It is about becoming honest. Not about proving your worth, but about remembering it. This is an invitation to step away from the noise of expectations and into the quiet work of alignment. Because when you rebuild yourself in silence, you don't just change your life, you change the way you walk through it. Transformation does not announce itself. It does not arrive with celebration, captions, or witnesses. It begins quietly, often unnoticed, in the most private corners of your life. The world teaches us that change must be visible to be valid, that growth must be proven to be real. But the truth is, the most meaningful shifts you will ever experience happen far away from public eyes. They begin in moments when no one is clapping for you, no one is encouraging you, and no one even knows you are struggling. Real transformation starts when you stop performing your healing and start living it. It begins when you make choices that feel uncomfortable but necessary. Choices that do not earn praise but demand integrity. It begins when you wake up one day and realize that explaining yourself has drained you more than rebuilding yourself ever could. So you stop talking, not because you have nothing to say, but because you finally understand that your actions will speak more honestly than your words ever did. Private change is slow. It does not give instant results, and that is why most people abandon it. There is no immediate validation, no visible reward. Just you, your intentions, and the work that needs to be done. It is choosing discipline when no one is watching, choosing restraint when you could easily react, choosing growth when comfort feels safer. And in those moments, something shifts inside you. You stop asking, "Do they see me?" and start asking, "Am I becoming better?" When transformation is public, it often becomes fragile. It depends on approval, encouragement, and constant reassurance. But when it is private, it becomes rooted. It grows strong in secrecy, protected from opinions, untouched by comparison. You are not trying to impress anyone. You are trying to save yourself. And that kind of intention carries a different weight. It is honest. It is steady. It is resilient. There is a sacredness in rebuilding quietly, in learning new habits without announcing them, in breaking old patterns without explaining them, in walking away from what no longer serves you without demanding understanding. Not everyone needs to know your reasons. Not everyone deserves access to your process. Some chapters are meant to be written alone, not because you are isolating, but because you are protecting something fragile while it grows. Private transformation also forces you to take full responsibility. There is no audience to blame, no sympathy to lean on, no external motivation to depend on. It is just you facing your weaknesses without filters, your fears without excuses. And that honesty can be uncomfortable. It reveals how often we avoided growth by staying busy, how often we confused noise with progress. Silence removes those distractions. It leaves you with truth, and truth has a way of humbling you. It shows you that change is not dramatic. It is repetitive. It is small decisions made daily. It is consistency when motivation fades. It is patience when results delay. It is forgiveness when you fall back into old habits, and the courage to begin again without announcing your failure or your restart. When transformation happens privately, it changes your relationship with people. You stop seeking validation from those who once defined your worth. You stop oversharing your plans because you understand how easily words can weaken commitment. You stop arguing for your growth because you trusted enough to let it unfold. And slowly, people notice, not because you told them, but because your presence feels different. Your reactions change. Your priorities shift. Your boundaries become clear without explanation. The strongest version of you is not built in moments of attention. It is built in moments of restraint, in choosing silence over reaction, in choosing patience over urgency, in choosing depth over display. Public applause fades quickly, but private discipline stays with you. It shapes your character. It steadies your heart. It gives you a sense of grounding that no external validation ever could. Transformation that begins in private does not rush to reveal itself. It waits until it is strong enough to stand on its own, until it no longer needs approval to survive. And when it finally shows, it is not loud. It is not desperate to be seen. It is calm. It is rooted. It is unmistakable. Silence is not emptiness. It is not the absence of sound or people or movement. Silence is a space, and what you bring into that space determines what it becomes. For many of us, silence feels uncomfortable because it removes the masks. It removes the distractions. It removes the roles we play for others. And when all of that fades, we are left with ourselves, unfiltered and unedited. That is where sincerity either returns or is exposed as something we have been avoiding. In noise, it is easy to pretend. Easy to say the right words, follow the right trends, repeat what sounds good. Noise gives us cover. It allows us to confuse activity with intention, appearance with depth. We stay busy so we don't have to be honest. We talk so we don't have to listen. We surround ourselves with opinions so we don't have to face our own. Silence takes all of that away. It asks one question and waits patiently for the answer. Who are you when nothing is demanding a performance from you? Sincerity is not built in crowds. It is restored in quiet moments where there is no benefit to pretending. When no one is impressed by your words, when no one is watching your effort, when there is no reward for saying you are better than you are. In silence, intentions become clear. You begin to see where your actions were driven by habit rather than purpose, where your words were shaped by fear rather than truth. It can feel confronting, even unsettling, because sincerity requires alignment, and alignment requires change. There is a difference between being good at talking about growth and actually growing. Silence reveals that difference. It shows you how often you said you wanted peace, but kept choosing chaos. How often you said you wanted closeness, but avoided vulnerability. How often you said you wanted change, but resisted discipline. In silence, there is no one to convince. You cannot negotiate with yourself using pretty language. What remains is what is real. This is why silence can feel heavy at first. It presses on the heart. It brings unresolved intentions to the surface. It reminds you of promises you made to yourself and quietly abandoned. But that heaviness is not punishment. It is clarity. It is the soul recalibrating. When you sit with it instead of running from it, something softens. The need to impress fades. The need to defend dissolves. You start wanting truth more than comfort. Sincerity returns when you stop rushing to be seen and start asking to be aligned. When your private actions matter more than your public image. When you care less about how things look and more about how they feel in your heart. Silence helps you hear the quiet contradictions inside you, not to shame you, but to guide you back. It invites you to simplify, to strip away what is extra, what is performative, what is exhausting. In silence, you learn to speak less and mean more. You learn that not every thought needs expression, and not every emotion needs reaction. You begin to notice how often you were explaining instead of living, justifying instead of correcting. And as you grow more sincere, your words naturally reduce. You don't have to announce your values when you are living them. You don't have to convince people of your intentions when your choices are consistent. This kind of sincerity also reshapes your relationship with yourself. You stop making promises you don't intend to keep. You stop setting goals to impress an imaginary audience. You start being honest about your limits, your wounds, your pace. Silence teaches patience. Not as a strategy, but as a necessity. You realize that rushing was never about ambition, it was about avoidance. Slowing down allows truth to catch up with you. There is a quiet relief that comes when sincerity is restored. You no longer feel fragmented, saying one thing and doing another. You feel whole, even if you are still unfinished. Even if the work is ongoing. Silence does not make you perfect, but it makes you honest, and honesty changes the quality of every step you take. Your prayers become more real. Your efforts become more grounded. Your intentions become cleaner. In that quiet space, you start noticing subtle shifts. The way you respond instead of react. The way you choose restraint without forcing it. The way certain desires fall away without struggle because they no longer align. You are not trying to be better for anyone else. You are trying to be truthful with yourself, and that truth begins to shape how you move, how you decide, how you show up, even when no one is there to notice. At some point, without even realizing it, many of us begin living for echoes. We listen for approval before we listen to our conscience. We measure our worth by reactions, by responses, by whether we are noticed, affirmed, chosen. Validation becomes subtle, almost invisible, but powerful enough to shape decisions, silence truths, and delay purpose. And the most dangerous part is that it feels normal. It feels like motivation. It feels like connection. Until one day, you feel empty despite being affirmed, exhausted despite being praised, and disconnected despite being seen. Letting go of validation is not about becoming indifferent to people. It is about becoming honest with yourself. It is about recognizing how often your direction was influenced by applause rather than alignment. How many times you adjusted your values to stay liked. How many times you delayed obedience to your own conscience because you feared misunderstanding. Validation trains us to outsource our sense of worth, and when worth is outsourced, purpose becomes distorted. Purpose does not shout. It does not compete. It does not beg to be noticed. It speaks quietly, consistently, and often inconveniently. And when your life is filled with the noise of approval seeking, that voice becomes harder to hear. You confuse popularity with progress. You confuse being supported with being guided. You confuse attention with meaning. Letting go of validation creates the silence necessary for purpose to surface again. This process is uncomfortable because validation once felt like safety. It felt like reassurance that you were doing something right. Walking away from it feels like standing alone. Decisions become heavier when there is no audience to approve them. Paths feel uncertain when no one is clapping. But this discomfort is not a sign that you are lost. It is a sign that you are no longer being carried by external affirmation. You are learning to stand on conviction. When validation loosens its grip, something surprising happens. Your choices slow down. You stop rushing to announce plans. You stop explaining decisions that feel right in your heart, but awkward to justify. You begin asking different questions. Not, will they accept this? But, is this honest? Not, will this make me look successful? But, will this bring me closer to what matters? Purpose thrives in these questions because they are rooted in truth, not performance. Reconnecting with purpose also requires grieving the version of yourself that lived for approval. There may be relationships built on pleasing, roles maintained through self-erasure, dreams shaped by expectations that were never yours. Letting go means accepting that some people will not understand your shift. Some will feel uncomfortable when you stop needing their validation. Some will interpret your boundaries as distance. That discomfort is part of the realignment. Purpose does not negotiate its authenticity to preserve familiarity. As validation fades, intention sharpens. You begin to notice how much energy was spent managing perceptions instead of nurturing direction. You feel lighter, not because life becomes easier, but because it becomes clearer. You realize that purpose was never lost, only buried under layers of approval, seeking habits. Silence, reflection, and sincerity uncover it again gently without force. Purpose also humbles. It reminds you that your role is not to impress, but to be faithful to what you are meant to carry. It teaches you that impact does not require constant visibility. That meaningful work often happens quietly, slowly, and without recognition. Validation craves immediacy. Purpose respects timing. Validation demands feedback. Purpose asks for consistency. When you no longer rely on validation, your relationship with success changes. Success becomes internal before it becomes external. It looks like peace with your decisions, integrity in private, alignment between belief and behavior. You stop chasing outcomes that look impressive but feel empty. You begin valuing depth over display, direction over distraction. This shift also changes how you relate to failure. When validation drives you, failure feels humiliating. When purpose guides you, failure becomes instructive. You are no longer afraid of being seen as imperfect because your identity is not tied to being admired. You can learn, adjust, and continue without announcing every stumble or success. Letting go of validation is not a one-time decision. It is a daily practice. Each day presents choices to either seek reassurance or trust intention. Each day offers moments where you can either perform or align. Purpose grows stronger with each quiet choice, each unseen act of sincerity, each decision made without an audience. And slowly, almost without effort, you begin to feel grounded again. Not because everyone agrees with you, not because you are constantly affirmed, but because you are no longer divided within yourself. You are moving in one direction, guided by something deeper than approval, something steadier than praise, something that does not disappear when the room goes silent.